Welcome to Coffee Theology's video series, Language 101. We're going to be asking the question in this video of what is language and why should we study it? A lot of times we don't really understand the miracle that there is in language. The ability to express things from one person to another and have us actually understand each other and communicate. It's a part of life from the very beginning. We learn it very quickly, and we constantly have people around us who are using it all the time, day in and day out. So we just take it for granted, and we don't really think about what all is involved. Language actually is a very amazing thing, and we want to look at it in this series of videos and understand better how it works. And in order to do that, we're going to be looking at how words form in Latin, how they form, why they form, what they're trying to communicate, what ideas are behind them. If you are not a Latin student, you'll still get a lot out of this because you'll understand from the videos how language works in the first place. You don't have to get to where you're reading Latin. I doubt you're going to have a conversation with the Pope anytime soon. But if you are a Latin student, this video series may actually help you to learn the Latin word formation even quicker than normal because of the way that it uses color fonts and such to show you the Latin word formation unless you see patterns and understand it better. So the question is, if you are the Latin student, for instance, you might be wondering, why am I even studying a language in the first place? Well, languages are very interesting. And if you stop and look into them, it tells you a lot about the people that have that language. But it really is just amazing how we are able to take certain ideas and communicate them in something that is written or spoken. For instance, when you look at this and I ask you, what is this a picture of? Now, most of you watching this video, because I happen to be speaking in English, are going to say, that's a tree. Well, yes, that's what we call it. We call it a tree. But there's actually just an idea behind that word tree in the first place. For instance, when we were teaching our daughters as they're growing up, and we're telling them, here's a tree, and we were driving one time, and my daughter saw one of these. And she looks out the car window and goes, oh, tree! And we're like, no, not a tree. But you can see it's wood, looks like it has a branch, but it's missing leaves and has all them wires on it. So you can see that there are some similarities, but we know that the word tree does not involve what is in this picture. That is a telephone pole or a power pole, or however you want to call it. And so we understand that behind every word is a particular idea, and the tree cannot be broadened out to include this other idea. And so we learn that certain little symbols and certain sounds represent an idea that's in our head that's otherwise invisible. If I'm just talking about a tree and I don't have a picture to show you and I'm not pointing at anything, it's just an invisible idea in my head and I want to communicate that. Now, with that, then, different places are going to communicate that idea using different symbols and different sounds. The top one here, if you are in China, this is how you would write down tree. If you are speaking Hebrew, you would write the second one here, and you would say it's eights. And the Chinese one, by the way, is su, and then you have eight, and then you have zulan, and then you have arbor, or you have tree. Now, you might recognize arbor because of Arbor Day, but really all of these mean the same thing. They all point to the idea that's there on the left. That thing that has a trunk and leaves and branches. And what's interesting is that we usually can distinguish between a tree and a bush, although some get close in between. But bush has a different idea. Tree has a different idea. But each one of these terms still refers back to a tree. Now, these words or terms are what really make up language. They are the building blocks of language. And if you use a term that is not accurate to the idea, there's going to be confusion and misunderstanding. This is why having a high vocabulary is actually really good. It doesn't just make you a nerd. It's actually a great way to prevent people from misunderstanding what you're saying. Now, these words and terms point to the idea, and they let the other person have the same idea in their head that you were having in yours when you thought about a tree. And if I speak English and I write tree, somebody who is speaking Chinese is not going to read that and understand it. But if I know that I can write the other thing in Chinese, or I say su, and that is a tree, then I'm able to communicate with them. And that is why we can still communicate across cultures. Now, this is important because a lot of people today are saying that you can never really know what was in the mind of the author when they were writing. It's the postmodern viewpoint that says we can't ever find out what the author was thinking because there's just too much hidden from us. But we don't understand the miracle of what an expression is, what a word is, what a term is. It is a way of expressing an idea, and given enough words, even through a foreign language, given enough time and given enough study, if you know the grammar and you know the structure of the words, the meaning is there. And many authors were far more careful than we are in modern times to be careful about what they're writing. And this is why it factors into the issue of theology and the Bible, because some people say, well, you just can't understand the Bible. You never know what the author really was meaning. It's like, no, you can. Paul and the other authors were very precise in the words that they use. They're not always easy to understand, and it takes a lot of study and sometimes personal growth, but they do communicate well, using the correct terms, using good grammar and a good vocabulary. Now, one other interesting thing about this concept of word and terms is that this is really why, as you learn early Latin, early Greek, you tend to go to John 1:1 because they call it baby Greek. But it's, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And what you see here is Jesus being referred to as the Word. We often think of that just maybe quickly as like, well, it's the Word of God, and it's like, wait, no, he is the expression of God the Father. He is an accurate, precise way of expressing who the Father is. He is the Word. The Father is invisible, like the idea in our heads is invisible. But I need to get that idea out to communicate and reveal what I'm thinking, and I do that using a word. And when the Son came, he was the Word of God. He was the expression of God to us in a way that we could understand and grasp. It's absolutely an amazing thing to think about, and for John to use that and to focus on how accurately Christ portrayed the Father by bringing in this expression, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, is amazing. Now, we said we'd ask the question, why study language? One, an accurate understanding of how language works allows for a greater precision and more creativity when expressing ideas. So when you study another language, you see how language works, and you realize there's different ways to express the same idea, and some of those ways are a little bit more creative, a little bit more interesting to listen to, and add a little bit more precision to what you're saying. So instead of always using and, but, or, the same three conjunctions over and over again, you find out there's a whole slew of conjunctions that you can use. There's different ways you can express things with prepositions. You're finding, hey, I could use a infinitive to express this idea, or I could use a participle, and it's like, well, which one fits, and how can I be more creative? And so when you realize that, when you grasp that, it helps you become someone who can express yourself well. Now, you don't typically see people going, oh, that guy knows grammar really well. They don't stop and think, oh, you're such a good grammarian. All they know is they enjoy listening to you more because you're easy to follow, you're easy to understand, and your ideas are precise, and you're not confused while listening to them. So because of that, you want to have precise communication, so you prevent misunderstanding. You want people to understand what you're actually saying, and you want to have that creativity, because the more creative you are in how you express the ideas you have, the more people want to listen, and the more they're going to be affected by what you say. So studying a language, looking into language, is something that is definitely worth your time, no matter what pursuit you're going into, because no matter where you go and what job you have, you are going to have to communicate to someone, and you're going to hope that that communication goes well. Now, the other question that you have is, why study a foreign language? Why not just study your own language really well? Well, when we study our native language, we end up focusing on utility, and the familiarity overrides the process of trying to understand the language better. We tend to go, oh, I already know how to say that. Oh, yeah, I knew that was what that was. That's a participle. Duh. Of course, 5 minutes later, we can't remember what a participle is. But we were like, oh, yeah, I know that language really well. And we just kind of skip past stuff instead of understanding how it works. Learning a foreign language slows you down and gets you to focus on how these terms form. How do these words come together? How does each part of that word or the part of speech that it is affect how I understand it? And then how do I not misuse parts of speech and misuse terms so that I end up getting people to misunderstand what I'm saying? Then the question that I often get asked when I do this Latin seminar for other people is, why Latin? Why would you learn Latin? Now, it is true that Latin is a dead language, and it's not one of the languages that the Bible was actually written in. And so there's a lot of things, why do it? Unless you're going to be a cardinal, unless you're going to, have to get up and quote something in a church service in Latin, why would you ever want to learn it? Well, the honest truth is that Latin is the easiest foreign language for any English speaker to learn, because it uses the same alphabet. It has a lot of the same roots to the words, and so it's if I were to go through this video series and use Greek, you'd be like, oh, it's all Greek to me. You wouldn't understand any of it, because you wouldn't even recognize the alphabet. You'd have to go learn the alphabet and everything else like that. Now, if you learn Latin, you'll be able to learn other languages really well after that. Greek will be very easy. I happened to learn Greek first, and then Latin, but Latin was very easy because I learned the Greek first, and vice versa. So, but especially for the sake of this video series, there's no way everyone's going to be able to learn the Greek alphabet before they watch this thing. So it's going to help to be able to have something that's in the English alphabet. And as for Hebrew, that would be like way too hard to try to do that. So I hope you enjoy this video series. And just as a note, we do have, this is the book that this video series is based on. It's a book of Latin charts that goes through Latin word formation using different colored fonts and so on and so forth. You'll see those all throughout this video series. This book is available for purchase, of course. I'd love for you guys to purchase it. Please do purchase it. But if you are studying Latin yourself, you'll definitely find it useful to be able to follow along with this video series. And it's a great tool to help you get to where you're reading Latin far sooner than you would without it. It helps you to find the forms quicker, understand the forms quicker, and get it in your head. So that is our first video. Like it down underneath if you would. And we're going to launch into this series. Hope you enjoy it.